Okay, so now that we've gone over the overview and now I've clarified for like annotations, what you're annotating for, now we're going to talk about citations. And you are going to be required to cite each one of these which one of these articles. It's becoming more and more clear that students are not getting enough practice with their citations, and therefore their inability to read other citations or perform this complex task on bigger assignments like research papers, it's becoming detrimental. The lack of practice is detrimental. And so we're practicing for this. Not to mention that citations are something that are used by all readers, including yourself. So that you might not use them right now, but once you start doing more research, you will be using citations to your benefit. And so citations are required, and there are obviously points associated with this. Just like there are points associated with the annotation, there are points with the citation. If the citation is incorrect, then you will not receive full credit. And be careful and wary of places like bibme.com or easybib.com. I find that students don't even know how to fill out those blank spaces, and so the citations are a loss. Like, the citations don't even look good because you don't know how to use that information, that source. So do not go to those sources, because then you will also know more intimately how to read a citation once you know what you're looking for. Once you know how to do one, once you know how to complete one, reading citations and understanding them becomes immensely easy. And if none of that is important to you, learning for your own benefit, then let me tell you, citations have been on the AP exam for the last 3 years. So if you don't know how to read a citation, if you don't know how to complete a citation, you are going to be up in a bad place, okay? Because there have been 2 or 3 questions every year that have to do with reading citations and understanding what they say, what they mean, and stuff like that. So that if for no other reason, because you want to be prepared for that silly test at the end, then you are going to complete these citations by hand and not using a source. And if the test isn't enough, knowing this when I went to college kept me from spending hours on my citations when I would write papers, and then it only went to I'd spent maybe 20 minutes on a paper that I used 5 or 6 sources on. So that's why we're doing this. So you're going to complete, once you've got your annotations done, then you're going to do an MLA citation. Yes, we are using MLA because it's an English classroom. If you master MLA or figure out MLA, the other ones are much easier. There's APA, which will be used in psychology and communications. There's Chicago style, which is oftentimes used in economics. There is, those are the 3 main ones. There are obviously a ton more, but just be aware of that. This citation is going to go at the top of your page, and then you're going to do bias identification underneath it. But let's talk about the bias identification is the next step. Let's talk about the citations. So all of this information here is important things for you to remember about how to do a proper citation. So the first thing is talking about the author's name that is listed. So whenever there's an author, you always put last name, comma, first name. So if your author is Liz Hain, you actually write it Hain, comma, Liz, period. That's how you write your citation, okay? Obviously, just like that. Now, sometimes, not very often, but sometimes you're going to have more than one author. And if that's the case, you list the author's name after the first one as first name, last name. So for example, if I and Ms. Halverson wrote an article together, you would cite us as Hain, comma, Elizabeth, and Jackie Halverson, period. Because it goes last name, comma, first name, and first name, last name, period. Absolutely. And the order that you put them in is not alphabetical. So they list the authors based on importance or contributions, right? So whoever's listed first is the biggest contributor to this article, or maybe was the head of this article, or oversaw most of this. And so you don't put them in alphabetical order, you put them in the order that they show up on the page. So the names are not alphabetical. They are put in the same order as they appear on the title page, period. That's it. If you've got more than 2 authors, then if you've got 3 or more, then you have a choice. You can list them all, or you could choose the nice phrase et al. So you choose to list only the first for the first author, and then you do et al. So if it was me, John Taylor, and Jackie Halverson that all wrote an article together, and my name was listed first, Elizabeth Hain was listed first, you do Hain, comma, Elizabeth et al. Period. So that's what you do. And that tells the reader that, hey, this person is the most important, and he or she worked with multiple other people. So anyone that reads a citation, including you, should know this. Et al. Means and everyone else. It makes it clear that more than 3 people worked on this, or 3 or more people worked on this. The first person that's listed, however, is the most important. Don't use any titles like Dr., Ms., Mrs., etc., etc. You use a hanging indent for the first line, so that means that it's like an inverse paragraph. So like notice, a paragraph usually starts with an indent. This actually, the indent is not there. Ms. Hain, how do I do a hanging indent? Google how to do a hanging indent. The instructions will be there. There's even videos there. If you use Google Docs, there's a video. If you use Microsoft Word, there's a video. If you use Pages on a Mac, there's a video there. So the hanging indent. So hanging indents are inverse of the paragraph, where there is no indent on the first line, but every other line after that, if there's more than one, there is an indent. Anytime that there's a month, you always abbreviate it, except for our beautiful May, June, and July, because they're really tiny anyways. And September is longer because that's the root of the word. The rest of these, Jan is a root, Feb is a word, Mars is a root, April is a root. Sept is the actual root of September. So that's how you put those there. When dates, and you're always going to have a date, a full date with day, month, year, you list it as day, month, and you abbreviate the month if that's one of the months that gets abbreviated, and year. So obviously if there's no day listed, then you drop the day. If there's no month, that's not going to happen to you. So this really is going to be what you use. Italicize both names, both titles and names of online products. That's not as much as important for here, but if no pages are provided, and that will happen for online sources, no pages, you write N period PAG. If you write NP, that's no publisher. Do not write that. N period PAG period. That means no page. And no publisher, you probably won't be using that. So this information I got from Ohio Schools. So let's take a look at some of these examples. Some of you might be using print sources, meaning like you got the article from the actual Star Tribune. That's totally cool. I dig it. That you can cut that out of the Star Tribune and bring it to class as long as it's annotated and you can write on it. Absolutely. So here it tells you, give me the author, the authors, and then a period. Title of the article goes in quotation marks. A lot of us did not do that correctly when we did the Smink article, that we would either underline or italicize that. Incorrect. A title of an article, a title of a smaller text, like an essay title, that goes in quotation marks, okay? Then, once you've got the quotation marks there, there's a period, title of periodical. So that would be, what's the larger publication that this was published in? So if I found an article from the Star Tribune, I put the title of the article there. Star Tribune is here, okay? That's the title of the publication. And then, notice how that is italicized, because italics means that this is a larger text. This is a larger body of work, and this is generally a smaller body of work. So Star Tribune's listed there, and notice how there is no comma, no period, no nothing. And you just go into the date, and the date is day, month, year, colon, and then you give me the pages. A lot of you are not going to be seeing pages because it's on an online source, but if you do a print source, there will be pages. Oftentimes with newspapers, it's going to be like A24 because that's the section it was in. So don't be confused if there's letters and numbers. Then there's a period after that, and medium of publication. So if it was print, that's what you write is print. So here's an example of an article that I actually looked up for you. So here's the name of the author, then a period. Name of the article, quotation marks there, then the period. Then I found it on Time. I found it in the actual newspaper Time. So I italicized that. Then there's the space. Then there's the day, month, year. Then there's the colon. Then there's the pages that it was on. And then the fact that it was a print source. So that's a print source. Online source tend to be a little more tricky. Online source follows the same general format. Author or authors is first. So authors as well. Title of article, always in quotation marks. There's a period there. Title publication, just like before, just like the top one. If it's from StarTribune.com, you're gonna say it's Star Tribune because that's the name of the news source. Then you put the date. So I'll give the date that it was published. Pages, oftentimes for online pages, it's going to say N.PAG, and then the website. And here's where I see students kind of make the mistake. They think the website is the really big, long thing that they see up in the top in the navigation bar when they look at websites, and it's not. I'm going to show you an example here. Here's an example of a news article that you could do a current event on. So the website itself you can find here, but it's not that whole thing. The only part of the website that you're looking for is this, the CNN.com. That's the only thing. Because since that's the source that's publishing this, that's its publication, you are publishing that. I don't need, or that's the publication you list. I don't need all of this. All of this is tell me where I can find the exact source of the article. I don't care. You've given me all the other information for me to find it. All I want is telling me where it was published, and that's CNN.com. All right. You can also see that when you print off your sources. So this is the example thing that's on page 32. You can also see the web page typically at the bottom here. So this is the URL is not showing because it's kind of a yucky copy. But you'll see at the bottom there's the big long URL, and this is the actual publication that you're going to identify. So that's how it's a little bit different for websites. It's just a website. It's not the full URL. Then you write web because that's the medium. There is no other medium, and if it's an online source, it is a web source. And then you'd say what date you printed it off at, what date you found it. So here is one. Leonard Pitts there. Here's the article title. Found it in the Baltimore Sun. That's where it was originally published. Found it on. That's the day it was published. There is no page number because I found it online. Here's the place it was published, BaltimoreSun.com, and then here's the date that I accessed it. So that's important to see, like, what's the timeliness of the material. What's the timeliness of the material that you are using? So that's a quick rundown. You might encounter some issues, and if you do, come and talk to me. But that you do need to have a citation at the top of your page that you're handing in to me. So